I'm calling the Public Awareness Personnel and Policy Committee of the Vallecitos Water District to order Wednesday, October the 3rd, 10 a.m. at the district offices. I do not see anyone wanting to make a public comment, so I will forego that. Items for discussion. Topic number 1, personnel. I have no items. Topic number 2, public awareness, new business. San Marcos Promise Student Expedition at the district on November 8th, 2022.
Yeah, and Chris will take that item.
Thank you, General Manager. So I've been working with Palomar College with the internships and with the San Marcos Promise with high school students. And word is getting around that I'm the guy to talk to if you're trying to get a career here. So some things have been brewing and I wanted to give an update. San Marcos Promise has a future fair on November 3rd. I believe this one will be at San Marcos High rather than Mission Hills. And it's my goal, we've typically brought out equipment and showed students equipment, camera truck, pickup truck, big sign, and been kind of outside and talking to people. But I think this time I'm gonna go double whammy and have equipment outside, but then a booth inside so that we can get students wherever they're at and talk to them about possible careers in water. So that's one effort with San Marcos Promise. The other item that I've committed to is this student expedition on November 8th. And San Marcos Promise wants to get 50 students, bring them here and give them a tour, almost like the Water Academy that you'll see if you both attend on October 20th, where we do a kind of a 3-part rotation. With the Academy, we do wastewater collections, water operations, and then the garden out front. But there's no real sense in taking the students to the garden. It does, there's not like a career garden. So spoke with engineering staff, specifically drilled it down to Elizabeth's group. She is development services and want to point out to students that there's not just outside jobs here, and the collections world is very much kind of a male-dominated field. Water operations, Cheryl used to work in water operations, but she retired. And so it's all men over there. And so wanted to have like a whole female group to give a presentation. Development services, it's all ladies. And it's inside jobs. So want to do those 3 rotations, take the students to the 3 spots. And the other thing that San Marcos Promise kind of threw out there, and I didn't say no at the time, was that we would feed them lunch. And now that we're getting closer, I think the reality is that I've committed to feeding them lunch. You know how it happens like that. I didn't say no, and I said I'd check on it, and then it gets confirmed. So just, I think the general manager has approval to approve a lunch, but just wanted the 2 committee members to know, yeah, we would feed them. And the other piece of that and the value of that, and the same thing happens with the Water Academy, is that we do these rotations and then we serve lunch, and the citizens in the Water Academy or these students, they get a chance to sit down and eat with staff and get a chance to sit down and kind of ask them questions where they can just ask it and not have everybody listening in or whatever, or some off the cuff question that they may have. It's one of the best things we do at the Water Academy. I know it doesn't seem like a real big thing because we go out and we actually look at the tanks and we look at the treatment plant and we give these tours, but honestly, I think the feeding and the having staff be with them, and they can ask whatever they want. You can ask the general manager; he's sitting there right with you. I think that's a real big benefit, and I think it'll be the same way with students, where they may be able to broach and talk in a smaller group setting than they would normally if it's anybody got any questions and they don't want to answer. So just an effort to get students here. It's on November 8th, and working with ops and engineering to make sure we put on a good presentation.
Chris, will we let the teachers that are responsible for coordinating that, will they know that there's gonna be a lunch and the kids will have an opportunity?
Yeah,
Yeah, because it'd be nice if they put some thought into it
yeah,
beforehand.
yeah.
Thank you.
And let's make sure we have vegetarian options as well.
We will do that.
Thank you.
And that's in conjunction with the promise? That's how you're gonna get the kids here?
Yeah, that's their task. They have to kind of push it. And
And it's San Marcos and Mission, or no?
that and Twin Oaks. So
Okay,
all
great.
3 of the high schools, and they're going to do however screening. And
It's a busy day.
say that again?
November 8th's a busy day.
Yeah, and I realized that. And in fact, I think one of the ladies knew that, board members because they asked, would they be there? And I was thinking, well, I think so, sure. And then one of them said,
I'll
that's
be here
Elections
if you would
Day.
like. If you would like me to come, I will come.
It might be a day to do some of that. And I know you have a really busy day, but it might be a real neat chance in
Sure.
its own right.
Happy to.
And so as long as I'm talking on this topic, down the road in January, San Marcos Promise asked that we would offer an experience-ship. So sort of like an internship, but instead an experience-ship. They did it with the city of San Marcos, and I guess it was really successful, where they kind of drilled, there's 50 students, but then who's really, really, really interested? And then maybe let them come over and shadow staff for, a few hours, maybe Tuesday through Thursday during the first week of January. So that's another
great.
thing that we're doing with San Marcos Promise.
I think this is great. One of the things that I think in particular this committee has really tried to do is promote educational awareness of water and also careers in water. And we've done a great job doing that with setting up the internship and setting up the scholarships. And thank you all for doing that. And this is a continuation. And, I think the hard part might be when we have to put the brakes on, when there's so much interest and we have to say, well, we need a little bit more time and space. But I'm glad you're doing this, and it's a tall order to have 50 young people here all at the same time. So let's see how it goes, and happy to support however we can.
The other hard part's having to admit to the general manager that I'm behind on my water conservation duties because of the school outreach I've been doing. So there's prices to pay for other tasks that you take on.
Sure.
I think one of the good things is Chris's name is getting out there and people know who to go to, and there's this, kind of a critical mass that's been built up, and that's awesome. So, but you're right, Director Boyd Hodgson, our capacity will be tested as we get more and more of these programs. Our ability to do them is going to be stretched, and we'll do the best that we can to keep up with the programs we've developed and to expand ones we haven't yet.
Well, and I'm also stepping on Ed's toes a little bit in that the event probably will be from like 10 to 12:30. Usually if we do things, we like to have it in the morning so that we can release the crews to get out to their work. And in this case, the schools don't even start that early anymore. So we're going to do it 10 to 12:30. So we will have some non-productivity that morning from some of our crews, but in the name of developing future applicants, we will get it done.
Well, thank you for your work, and I think it is a testament to you and your team as well, and you're getting out there and people realize that you're easy to work with, and that's great for the district. So that's all part of PR, but I hear you that it's a lot of work and other things are getting pushed to the back burner, so I hear that.
And Chris, I know it's not on the agenda, but can you give a real brief update on the internship, Palomar internship?
Yeah, so I did send a letter of recommendation for Greg Gauthier. So he's applying for jobs. He is in the internship program with CWA now. So he got into that kind of more advanced level internship. And then we have Ben Crane here now, and Ben was one of our scholarship winners. And Ben is coming on Mondays and Tuesdays. Monday he's in school until like 1:30. So he comes over at 2 o'clock and we just have a little short day, more office related from 2 to 5 p.m. where he interacts with office. And then Tuesdays is the full day where he goes out and does more field activities. So he's going out with he went out with a construction inspection last week. He's going out with construction inspection again this week, different employees. One was, today is the locator, Pilos. It's going to take him out tomorrow. So he's getting a full depth and breadth of the district, and I think getting a little bit more of the office stuff than Greg got, but that's okay. You know, there's jobs in here too, so all good and real positive, and he's a pleasant young man.
Good, that's great. Okay, anything else on that item?
Nope.
Just, have we done this before with this many students?
We will give tours to like fifth graders and kind of do that 3-part rotation type thing. One time we tried it with middle school and really didn't go very well. And the middle school students are just so much rowdier and, you know, the parents that come along, what are they? Chaperones, that's the right word I want. You know, don't intercede as much as they should on correcting their activities. You know, they'll step on the succulents, you know, that type of thing. We tried that one time and just gave up on it.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, what have we learned from the past?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah. So
50, 15, 16, 17-year-olds.
yeah.
That's a tall order.
So, you know, we will see how this goes. I don't think we've had, you know, high school students since I've been here starting in 2015. So, you know, this will be interesting, and let's hope it's real successful. And San Marcos Promise has a burden on their side to, you know, screen the students and make sure it's a good event. So we're going to put our best foot forward.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
No, good job.
Okay, anything else? Okay, opportunities for district to support charitable organizations. This is an item that I requested that we start talking about, maybe brainstorm a little bit. And it wasn't really a fully formed idea. I don't have any expectations or, you know, sort of identified groups that I feel really strongly about, but I wanted to just bring it to the committee and think about, you know, this could go a couple of different ways. It could be something that we do sort of as a holiday organizing body, you know, to give back to the community, or it could be something that we participate in with sort of conservation-minded organizations, like a beach cleanup or a city cleanup or something like that. I just wanted to throw it out there. I don't know if we've done something like that before, so maybe that's a place to start.
Yeah, as long as I've been here, we have not, so it doesn't mean we can't, but, I hate to be the wet blanket on some of these things, but depending which way we go, there could be legal implications
Sure,
about, you know,
and-
gift of public funds.
Sure, sure.
If it's something in our wheelhouse, like if it's a water quality related thing or trash pickup, we could probably easily make the findings that we don't have any problems, any conflict. But if it was purely just a charity for other purposes, then I'd
Okay.
want to reach out to BBK and find out what our latitude is.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I had that thought this morning as well. So maybe that helps us make a decision, right? You know, maybe if it's, you know, I don't know, a lot of organizations, a lot of places do something on Martin Luther King Day. And, you know, maybe it's a beach cleanup, or maybe it's a town cleanup, or, you know, and it's completely voluntary, of course. We wouldn't want to pressure people into doing it, but, you know, that's something that I would participate in if we organized some kind of group that, you know, worked with an organization. I can think of Surfrider, for example. They do a lot of cleanups around cities and a lot of beach cleanups. There's probably other organizations too, but, you know, something like that just to give back to the community as well as, you know, take care of our water. So that was the initial thought.
What do you see being the next step? Would each individual director maybe submit what they think is good, or are you looking for staff input?
Yeah, I think we all maybe run in different circles, and we might have different ideas of which organizations, but I think conservation-minded, environmental-minded, water-minded, you know, let's put those parameters around it. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I see I was thinking a couple ways. I don't see us financially, monetarily donating to any charitable cause. That would be a hard sell, especially to ratepayers. But I see kind of even even heading a beach cleanup or some type of
Mm-hmm.
water-related volunteer effort in kind, but not in
Yeah.
dollar forms.
Okay.
I mean, in fact, my ideas went to the area. We could like head up, Vallecitos will head up a beach cleanup and include Vista Irrigation and Oceanside and Carlsbad and all the water districts kind of collaborating and coming
Oh.
together.
Making it bigger,
Make
okay.
it just a big water, districts cleanup day and then invite the public.
Okay,
That's kind of where I went with it, but
Okay.
I don't know. I was more.
you're running with it. I love it.
Well, no, just, I'm just, 'cause it seems like, I don't know, and I don't know the water industries, I'm on the board, I know, but is there a competition out there or is there a collaboration? And I would like to see more of a, we're all in this together
Yeah.
mode instead of, they're taking this employee from this employee, and there's a, we want to be better than Carlsbad or better than Rancho Santa Fe. It's like, why don't we just we're all in this together, let's join, and how can we do it all better together? And we could get behind that in a way like, let's all clean up the beach together, or let's all clean up a street together instead of be in competition with, but in conjunction with. It was where my mind was going.
Okay.
But I don't see supporting anything financially at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a super hard sell, taking money and donating toward whether it's a good one or not.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some ratepayers like, wait a minute, you're taking funds and donating to the MLK or whatever it may be.
Yeah, understood. I originally thought like a toy drive, but I hear your concerns loud and clear, and I share them. I think this is a great idea. I think making it bigger would be fun. Would you be willing to work on that and champion it?
Yeah, I mean, even in fact, Vallecitos could drive it, we could be the driver behind it, and yeah, we could
Okay.
invite, those in North County, side, wherever. So we could make it a regional thing as well. We're gonna have districts in Imperial Beach clean up theirs, and we'll go all the way up the coast to Santa Barbara. I don't know, we can make it along the state. Water districts and clean up the whole coastline for a day. Coastline cleanup by water districts.
Yes.
So I could kind of head that up.
Okay.
Yeah, no
That's
problem.
awesome. All right, thank you. I like that idea. So one thing that Surfrider does when they do their beach cleanups is they weigh it. They weigh the amount of garbage, and I don't know what value that would add other than it just really sort of brings home the impact. But if we could figure out a way to do that, or if we wanted to partner with organizations to help us get the word out, I don't know. I'll let you.
I've done
You
that.
can figure that
I
out.
volunteered at Bro-Am. You ever been to Bro-Am? There's a cool Bro-Am. Yep. Yeah, Bro-Am does that. It's cool. It's Rob Machado, his group's out there, and I was there picking through garbage because they have recycle. They have 3 different garbage, and I was one of the guys that stood there. Is that recyclable? Is that is that I forget what it was, just
Yeah.
the food side or the garbage side? And at the end, we were weighing garbage and weighing
Yep.
crud, and it was nasty. But I don't know where all that data goes. But yeah, I mean, we could actually again combine with a Rob Machado group or with Bro-Am and volunteer there, and it'd be
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
Thing is, what do you do with that data or afterwards? I don't know what.
Yeah,
what it
well,
goes for.
I do know, so Surfrider has an app. As you're picking up stuff, you can indicate what you're picking up. And then it sends their data, it compiles it to some kind of database. And I think that they use that because they're a nonprofit, they use it to sort of say, here's the impact that we're making. That's the only experience that I've had with that. But it's kind of clunky because you're trying to have the bag and you're trying to have the tongs and you've got your phone and like, oh, cigarette butt, and then you have to, oh, microplastic, but it does keep track of it and it uploads it. You can sync it to, their database, and that's how they keep track of the impact that they're making. So I don't know if this other group has something like that, but maybe they do, and that's how they report out in their financial reports and their to keep their nonprofit going. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
We could-
Yeah, I think if we had a trash pickup event, a great partner would be like an Edco. They could help us, whatever we picked up, they would get rid of for free. That would be their contribution, and they may be able to help us with the analytics and the sorting and all that.
that's a great idea.
So,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be just water districts. I like that idea, but to pull in the Edcos and whatever other trash hauler in the world would help.
Yeah. Yeah.
General Manager, just to share on some of the items. So the district does have Breast Cancer Month. Ingrid Stichter, my coworker, she lost a daughter to breast cancer. And so she puts forward a lot of events internally to raise funding. We also have our blood drives here, basically quarterly or almost quarterly. And then some of the staff have done some events for, I think it's Lions Club, although I'm not sure, where you bring in your old glasses and, you know, they'll take your lenses out and keep the frames and be able to pass them on to somebody else. So there's been some other events. James maybe remembers a few others.
Yeah, this is pre-COVID, but a while ago, but we used to do a Christmas in July drive, and then we also did the working with the Marines for the toy drive in the past. We used
Toys
to
for
have
Tots?
bins. Yeah, Toys for
Okay,
Tots.
okay.
Yeah. So we've done those. Usually it's like you were mentioning, it's a volunteer, and there usually is one or two employees that are passionate about it, and then the district staff supports them. Is kind of how it always happened kind of organically. It was never like a concerted effort, but we have done that in the past.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we've got a couple of different ideas then, and maybe we bring it to the board for discussion. What do you think about that?
I think so.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So maybe on a future agenda we can bring these two ideas forward. I mean, one is kind of involving the employees internally collecting and then giving back to the community. Another way is involving the employees sort of going out into the community and doing some volunteer service. So it's a couple of different ways to give back to the community, and I think each of them have merit, and some people might like one over the other. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Give 'em choices,
yeah, choices.
options.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for putting this on the agenda and being willing to discuss it. Any other ideas about that?
Nothing more on that.
Okay, great. Item number 3, policy, old business, ordinances, policies, resolutions, and practices, discussion, update.
Yeah, so I think this may have been at one of your requests to put on it. This is something we've been talking about for a couple of years now. We've made progress in some of the areas, and I think the thought now is to kind of refocus and figure out what our next step is on updating our ordinances, policies, resolutions, et cetera. So it looks like Anthony's sharing. This is a list that we had developed we had brainstormed at a staff level and talked about ordinances primarily that we thought would be good to bring back in front of the board. And we did a little research and talked what the current document number is and the reason for consideration. There's usually a reason, right? We put something forth and we try to implement it, and something happens in practice where it's not working exactly how we wanted it to. So staff has identified some thoughts. We said, hey, we need some board direction or a broader discussion on these items. And I think that's all this was just capturing the ideas that staff had come up with. So I'm not sure what we want the conversation to be today, but it's any direction that the committee can give staff would be helpful to figure out what you'd like to see in front of you next. James, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, if the committee is interested, I can give some updates on the ones that I'm familiar with. I'm not familiar with every single one of these, but most of the engineering and operations-based ones, I'm familiar with where we are in progress. So, but that's at the committee's pleasure.
I think, Director Pennock, I think you had suggested that there were, that we start taking up the ones that were priorities for staff, right? I think you mentioned that before. And it seems to my mind that there were several that were really providing some opportunities and challenges for staff that we wanted to make sure that we took up fairly soon. So, and I don't remember exactly which ones those were. So if we could flag those and maybe just start bringing them forward. What do you think about that?
That's what it was, because, yeah, I wouldn't know what you guys run into on a daily basis. That's staff would. It's like, yeah, I keep combating with these ordinances or these policies. It'd be nice to either tweak it or adjust it or get rid of it or something. But again, I don't think board members would know what you guys come up with on a daily basis, but you guys would.
Yes, and I think there may be things that come to your attention at a board meeting, like the timing of the payment of cap fees. Is that something that's caught your interest? Do we do it the right way or not?
Yeah, there's some things, yeah.
Yeah, so staff may be comfortable with the way that's handled right now, but the board may not be. So that's one way, and there's other things where staff says, this isn't working for us, we need to figure this out. So I think between those two sources, and maybe there's a third source too, we can help prioritize these. And James, I don't know if you can maybe walk us through, not item by item, but maybe point out the ones that we think may need some worthy of discussion. I can see that third one, the backflow device upgrades. We've started that process, right?
Yeah, and that one, I think I gave the P3 an update on it. We're basically at the finish line. We're waiting for the state. And then probably around, we're hoping maybe by the end of the year or probably right around the new year, we're going to bring it back to the board as the information is, hey, now we're moving forward. There's 13, I believe number's 13, that the district is fully responsible for replacing. We're going to replace them at 30 to 40 grand a piece and then hand them over to the new ownership. But the remaining is the owner's responsibility. So in other words, we're going to be sending out letters and the process of that, and we'll repeat all this at the board. The process will be sending out letters to everybody. There's roughly 180 and change of them. That is the owner's responsibility. At that point, we're going to get some panicky owners, and we'll start working through the problems, getting the low-hanging fruit. Many of them won't even respond to us, so we'll give them time and then probably go back another 6 months to a year later. We're going to give them plenty of time. We're going to say, you have 2 years to do this. If you need to work with us on it, give us a call. We could work with you on it. We could recommend contractors. We could recommend different things. We could recommend, ways to save money on resawing. So staff's going to work on this. But we also have to gear up for it as far as from a procedural, because this will add another element of work. And right now we're kind of pushing through all of our development work. So we're going to come back and almost develop an internal standard operating procedure on how to handle these as they come in. We don't anticipate them to all come in at once. They'll probably come in waves. At least we're hoping they will. And then probably a year later, we'll reevaluate, give an update to the board of where we are. We sent out 180. We got 40 responses back. 20 of them are being put in. We still have 160 left, something to that effect. As long as we keep on chipping away and then we submit that to the state, they're happy. So
What is the state deadline again?
there's no state deadline,
Okay.
but technically the state says everybody needs to just be in compliance, but they understand what's happened because they changed the rules. So they're saying that you need to actually move forward with active resolution. I think that was the term they used, or else there could be consequences. What those consequences are probably fines.
Yeah, in cases like this, the state usually just wants to make sure that you have a program and that you're taking active steps. They don't always step in and say 2 years, 10 years, but they want to make sure you're making progress.
Yep. So that one's an easy one. The time of cap fees, really, that's more of this staff level is fairly at staff level, we're fairly comfortable with it. There are some cost of service principles that we need to address on collecting money for coming and basically working on meters past when the infrastructure is complete. But really, that's more of an accounting setup. But it's going to be what staff is looking at is kind of refining that a little bit and coming back to the committee and board. And then as far as, can you scroll down for me, Anthony? Obviously, business of the board's been taken care of already, so that's great. That's good to get that one done. And then I think there's the fire service discharge of sewer. We're already working with the city. So what happens now is some of the larger buildings, especially the ones in the new university district over by the college area, they are putting in large reservoirs, basically tanks, on top, which hold their fire because they have so much residence. So that new 12-story building and a proposed 16-story building is supposed to be going in that area. We're talking about 2 buildings with over 1,000 units, or roughly 1,000 units. So they need additional fire suppression water, basically storage. Well, and they need to be able to get rid of that water, and they want to discharge it into our sewer. Currently, we don't allow that. So they have no way to get rid of it. So we're looking at a policy that allows them to get rid of that in the sewer time, but have it controlled. In other words, we don't want them to get rid of it at 7 a.m. in the morning when everybody's taking showers and our sewer system is full. Get rid of it after midnight when we have capacity in that system. So it's more of a timing issue. So we're starting to work with the city and work on a resolution with also the developers and also the designers of these fire systems before we come back to the committee or board. And then I think on the second page there was another one.
How often do they have to get rid of that?
I don't know. Right now, it's more like they need, from the fire code, the fire departments tell me that they need to have the ability to get rid of it, and they're not allowed to get rid of it into the storm drain system. with the new regional board rules on surface water discharge. So
That's probably a large quantity of water.
well, I think they're 5, 10, 15,000 gallon tanks, which, you know, in our world, that's a small,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
but for an
That was bigger
8-inch
than-
sewer line, that's tremendous amount. It can't handle that over a, you know, so for us, it's, you know, you have to discharge it. This is your window. You have to be able to, and this is the maximum gallons per minute. You know, an 8-inch sewer line can handle about 250 gallons a minute. So you can start doing the math and into 10,000 gallons and start back into, you know, how large of a discharge or how big of a tank you can have. So, or else you have to be able to discharge it over a couple days. So those are the type of things, the details we're working on.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not just the quantity, it's the quality of the water. So if they discharge that into the sewer system and it's going into a biological treatment plant, we want to make sure there's nothing in the sewer or in the fire service discharge that's going to kill all the bugs at the plant and get rid of the biological component of our treatment plant. So-
That's a good point. Our treatment plant is a living organism, basically, and the water can be too clean. So like, we were approached years ago about maybe diverting storm drain water into our treatment plant. The problem with that is the storm drain water, even though first off, it has oils and grease, like the first flush from the rain, that will kill the bacteria that's beneficial at the treatment plant, so we can't have that. And the water itself is just too clean. So, because they need a certain amount of food, they're on a certain diet, so to speak. So, and then as far as the wastewater and water lease, this is, committee members may recall, this is some of the areas, like you have an industrial complex that has maybe one bathroom, and it was a warehouse or some type of shipping place, and now there's a brewery there. So instead of using one bathroom worth of sewer between their product, they're using 40 to 50. So never paid for the capacity. So we have the ability to lease the capacity. So the big deal about this one, though, is when we lease the capacity, the additional lease fee is equivalent to our cap fee, but broken down in a per gallon, so to speak. And we make that money back up, and that money goes into the proper fund, which is our capacity fee fund. Because basically we have to build bigger infrastructure to accommodate that higher use. The ordinance currently, though, on the sewer side says they have to purchase 25%. So in other words, if they have, 10 EDUs, they need 2.5 EDUs. If they only have one, they have to buy another 1.5 to get them to the 2.5 equivalent dwelling units. This is where a lot of the business owners get shock value, because now it's almost, what is it? I forgot what our cap fees are, but it's well over $10,000. It's 13 or 14,000 or maybe higher per EDU, and if they have to buy 5, 10, 20 of them, those numbers add up. Problem is, we're also looking at how we interact with Encina, because that's capacity that we're using up in Encina system, and where it makes sense. At the end of the day, we'll collect our cap fees from them, but it will be over a 20-year period, or for the district getting that cap fee now. The big thing is we need to try and make sure when we look at this policy that we don't inadvertently hurt our ratepayers. The ratepayers subsidizing, it's not development in this case, it's existing businesses. So we're looking at that, but for the existing business, it's a tough pill to swallow. Say you have a $200,000 bill and you're still paying this lease. So we've ran into this with Lost Abbey and a couple others.
Yeah, and a lot of these are what I call legacy problems. There was a period of time where development and businesses turned over. They went from a warehouse to a brewery, and they didn't let us know. The water district was never part of that conversation. They may have dealt with the city knew what they were doing, but they didn't bother to check with us. So there's this period of time where these things converted, we never had our input be known. James has done a great job in more recent years of make sure that we're involved in what they call the tenant improvement process with the city. So if the city's put on notice that something's happening, the city lets us know, and then we get our voices be heard to say, hey, if that warehouse is converting into a brewery, you need to let them know that they're gonna have to buy more capacity into the system. So I don't think the problem's getting bigger going forward. There's things that you never know. Maybe somebody converted a warehouse and they didn't even tell the city. So there may still be problems in the future, probably not as many, but in the past, there's this group of customers that are exceeding their capacity that they've purchased, and we're trying to figure out how to manage that. So, and like James said, it's big numbers. It's kind of similar to the backflow program, and then all of a sudden, a business is operating, and then they get a love letter from the water district saying, you owe us $200,000 in capacity, and that doesn't go over well. So that's something that we feel that the committee and the board certainly needs to weigh in on as to how we resolve these issues.
I mean, is there anything in-house where you see that, you know, volume of, as far as just the quantity of water went from so many units per month to a super large quantity? I mean, somebody like a Soapy Joe's, you know, if they were, used to be like a auto body shop or something, now all of a sudden they're washing 1,000 cars a day or whatever, 10,000 cars a day. Do
Yeah,
you
so
see that
this-
huge water increase, and does that trigger anything in-house?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So it's usually not a global problem. We're not seeing a problem on our ability to deliver water, our ability to treat wastewater. What we're seeing is on a smaller issue, are the people paying their fair share? Because otherwise, other customers are subsidizing the people that aren't paying their fair share. So for example, we get a bill from Encina every month for our share of cost to treat wastewater down there. And they basically look at the volumes and the strength of the sewage that go down there, then they send us a bill. And it's built into our rates, and we spread it across our customer base. What we don't know is, Lost Abbey used to be a warehouse, and they're not paying their fair share anymore. So everybody else is subsidizing Lost Abbey. So it's not a global problem, it's more of a microscopic problem, I'll say. It's a business by business, but in the interest of fairness to all of our customers, everybody should be paying their fair share. So that's kind of what the broader concept is here, is to make sure that we're charging people appropriately. But again, we need to give people time. You can't just send somebody a bill that says you owe us $200,000 or we're gonna shut you off. They need to be given time, they need to be given options. We've been working with Lost Abbey for 4 years, something like that, almost my entire career here. We've been trying to resolve these issues in a way that's customer friendly, but we're not just letting the issue go away.
Actually, I think those issues predated my time here. Probably it's early to mid 2000s when that started with the first letters from the district. So on that particular customer.
And it's a big staffing issue. I mean, if we really wanted to pursue this, let's take the politics aside and the problem that customers may have with actually paying their bills. If we just wanted to go full force on this, it's a lot of work for us to be looking through customer bills, identify who's exceeding their current capacity, trying to calculate that out, working with the customer to try to figure out what they should pay. It's in depth. We don't have the staffing. And I know there was conversations in previous budget times that maybe we should add that position. I just want to make sure we have our program in place before we actually start staffing it, because I don't want to hire a body and then find out for some reason we don't want to pursue the issue, right? Now we have got a body that there's nothing for that person
Are
to
we
do.
just talking wastewater right now?
No, it's both.
It is both.
Yeah.
And our system does have the ability, if you are a typical user and you use a certain amount and all of a sudden it jumps up, it red flags it.
Yeah.
But
That's
for
what I
these users, they've been using a higher level for years before we upgraded our system. So it doesn't see those deltas, because they've been producing beer for a while now, so.
Yeah, so that's a good point. If they go over one day, we're not gonna ding them for one day. They filled their pool, right? They use more water in a day than their meter would normally serve in a day, which I think is 500 gallons per day. Not a big deal. But if they're doing it every day for years, okay, that's a big deal. And what is the litmus test to determine if they're a habitual exceedance of their capacity?
And our ordinances have some language, and we used to have some agreements with customers that had some language. If they exceed 120% for more than 3 months straight, and then the average is above a certain percentage, then they be responsible. But most of those agreements are newer, and most of the problems, as General Manager Prue mentioned, are legacy problems that happened when we had a different system, we had different policies or different practices on how we. And usually, the big deal of it is we just never knew. It was a warehouse, it was a warehouse, it was designed as a warehouse, it was conditioned as a warehouse. The use changed over the years, and we didn't have that interaction with the city on the tenant improvement program like we have now.
So for every customer we have that goes over, we probably have collectively many customers that go under their capacity. So that's why it's not a global issue. It's not a big issue. Our pipes can usually support the water and wastewater demands, even though there are some customers going over. It's just a fairness doctrine that we're trying to figure out what's the right fairness.
And almost everything on this list is something that will come back and potentially touch the board members as far as a customer being upset and potentially giving a board member a call. So whether it's, you know, the reimbursement policy or even on one of Chris's, one of the agricultural water rates, so.
And you'll often receive calls from city employees too, maybe the mayor or city manager, because the things that we do could affect economic development in the city. So they're gonna call and say, hey, what's this I hear that you're going after Lost Abbey? So there's a lot of political ramifications of these things that are kind of buried within an ordinance.
But with this, you can see all of them, the staff has been diligently working, basically on and off on many of these ordinances, and we've been teeing them up. But what we can do is kind of regroup as staff and maybe prioritize them prior to bringing them back, and then getting the committee's thoughts on that.
I think that would be good. I mean, and I think Director Pennock and I are aligned that we would like to prioritize the ones that are creating, you know, headaches for staff and try to, you know, try to work through those first, right? Would you?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them have fairly straightforward, easy solutions from a staff point of view, and some of them are a little bit more complicated. So
Sure.
I got a feeling when I ask staff, they're going to go with the low-hanging fruit.
Let's knock them
and-
out. Yeah,
so-
let's knock them out. That's fine.
Well, and the staff straightforward technical solution may be very different than the political solution. So that's why I think it's worthy of good conversations.
Okay,
So how about
sure.
we do this? How about for next board or next committee meeting, we come back with a prioritized list of what's on here? There may be some new ones that are added. We'll maybe take off the ones that we've already addressed, and then we can have that discussion.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, anything else on ordinances, policies, resolutions, and practices discussion update? Before we move on, I did have a question. So regarding this the last issue that we were discussing, the tenant improvement projects, how, and maybe this is a discussion, and I'm happy to put it off, and, you know, once we sort of go in depth into this specific issue, but it sounds to me like better communication with the city, or it sounds to me like communication with the city has improved.
Definitely.
And that is a way to be proactive. I wonder if there needs to be some kind of, I mean, because if someone pulls a permit, they don't pull it with us, they pull it with the city. And we don't have any, we can't make any decisions or judgment about whether or not that permit goes through. We can only say, if you do this, then that. You know, then if you build out your building like this, then we weigh in and we say that means that you will have to pay X amount of dollars and increase capacity, right? Let's also think about a way that we can maybe enter the discussion earlier in the chain. And I don't know if there is a way. I'm just saying that might be beneficial so that by the time the person is ready to pull the permit and has, you know, made all of these plans, that we are not providing information that's sticker shock or that is, you know, that's limiting or, you know, sort of career ending for that particular direction.
Yeah, we call those like late hits, right? Nobody wants
Yeah.
that late hit as they're
Right.
going through this process. They don't want at the last minute the water district to run in and say, hey, wait a minute, you gotta do this too. We get involved as early as possible, but again, like you said, the applicants always go through the city. They have a development project and the city is the land use authority, so they need the city approval. Part of the TI process, we have to sign off on that process. So the city technically isn't supposed to issue that permit, whatever permit is being sought, unless the district has signed off on it.
Okay.
So we do have the ability to kind of, I'll say, kill a project if they haven't met our standards and our criteria.
I
And
gotcha. Okay.
Just to give you a kind of a breadth of scale, we got anywhere from 15 to 25 TIs being processed through engineering at any given time. The board usually doesn't hear any of them because they usually, right in the process at the city, it talks, you need to go to Vallecitos Water District to make sure that you have whatever conditions or whatever analysis that needs to be done. Normally, that's early in the process before any real money's being spent on any of the TIs. And our process, whether it's putting in a oil grease separator or capacity issues or even little extension of a pipeline, is usually all taken care of, and the board usually doesn't hear any of it because it's done early. The ones that end up making it to a board member's ear or management's ears are two. It's either an egregious amount of money because they're far over the capacity, which is not normal. That's not the normal case. That's kind of a one-off, like the Lost Abbey situation. Or they ignored the city until they got to the end, and they wanted to get occupancy for their TIs at the city, and the city said, you never got Vallecitos' buy-off. And then they show up at our door saying, I need it next week. And we say, well, hold on a second. And that's when they get upset also. So those are the two instances, the oddity, which is this big difference, because usually that's the rarity. That's not the normal. That's the exception to the rule. And then typically it's the ones that accuse us of being late because they didn't follow the process.
Gotcha.
Yeah, one of the things that the board will often see are construction agreements. You see those pop up from time to time, and that's usually part of the development review process that says, hey, if you want to build this development, you have to extend these water lines and sewer lines that will ultimately become ours, and that triggers a construction agreement where they build it, we inspect it, we sign off on it, and then we take it over. So those construction agreements are usually related to the land development function, not exclusively tenant improvements. It could be a brand new development as well, and often is for those.
Just a question on, is residential and commercial different? I mean, if somebody calls in, if I'm a current tenant, like I'm ABC Warehouse right now at this place, like Lost Abbey, all of a sudden they call in and say, we're gonna stop service on October 1st, and there's gonna be a new tenant. Lost Abbey calls in and say, we're the new tenant, can we change the name? Does that not prompt, do we ask them any questions at that time, or are you going from ABC Warehousing to a brewery? When they call in and just change the service name and or servicing?
That's a great question.
I mean,
The simple answer is no, because typically from our customer service side, you're just changing the meter from one ownership to another. They don't talk about the use type. If it's commercial, it's commercial, it stays commercial. But that's something we could definitely look into. I don't know if I don't know how the software on that side's taken care of, but that is, it may be a moot point now. I can't say that with certainty.
Right, just going forward, it seems like in
Yeah.
the future, what, you
'Cause-
know, I
'cause
mean,
now we're-
residential, yeah, we're still using residential, but on the commercial side, you know, this has been used as, you know, I don't know if we had a few questions. Okay, you're going from ABC Warehouse to Lost Abbey. What are you guys gonna be doing now? Can we ask that?
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah.
It may also, we may all capture all the commercial and industrial through our TI process, so it may be a moot point. And usually there's no issue on the residential side. You know, the only thing that we
Right.
run into in the residential side is people are adding to their homes. They're expanding, they're adding a bedroom, they're expanding their house. And for us, we just look at it and say, there's nothing for us. We're
Because
good.
there's two phone calls, right? The one ending the service and the one starting the service. I'm moving out, I don't need it anymore, and I'm
Yep.
moving
Yeah,
in and I
typically.
need new service.
Yeah, and at a minimum, we can tell the new service account holder, say, hey, just so you know, this only entitles you to so much capacity, right? At least they've been put on notice.
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
It won't catch everything, but at least if we document that, and then down the road, we have to kind of fight about it, then we can say, hey, we notified you when you first signed up for this, that it only entitled you to a warehouse, one bathroom, and not a brewery.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of success stories. There's a commercial on Rancho Santa Fe Road. It was, I don't know what it was originally, but a laundromat came in there later. Now, you can imagine the amount of water and the amount of sewer that's creating compared to just an office building or whatever it was originally. And that owner came in after we sent him a letter and paid $180,000 in cap fees, no problem. So he said his business is doing good, and it lowered his water bill because now he had more capacity that he paid for. He had a bigger meter that he paid for, and his monthly water bill was lower. Now I don't know where the break even was, but that's one of those success stories where we were expecting them to be upset about it. So.
Okay.
In my experience, one of the hardest problems is it's just the financial impacts. Usually a new owner that's putting a bigger demand on the system understands that. They just can't pay it all up front. Like we may say, hey, you owe us $200,000 in past due capacity fees. So one of the things we may want to focus on going forward is how do we ease that financial burden over a period of time without becoming a bank, right? I don't want to be lending money to people that pay us back through monthly charges, but when it's a couple $100,000, it may be unreasonable to expect a small business to be able to do that. They may be able to do it over a period of time. They can't write a single check on day one.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions about that? Okay, the next meeting date will be November the 7th, 2022. And if there's nothing else, then I think we are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.